What's going on YouTube? Cyrus here, coming at you with another Final Fantasy XIV review, and today is my review of Shadowbringers. Alright, so my review of Shadowbringers today. I am going to be doing kind of the same thing that I did in my other reviews for A Realm Reborn, for Heavensward, for Stormblood. That means I'm going to be doing a list of my pros and cons, going back and forth, the things I really liked and the things maybe I didn't like quite as much. So before I get into that, this is going to be a spoiler review, so if you haven't played Shadowbringers yet, the story is good. And I would recommend you maybe skipping this video and coming back once you finish the story yourself. So, with that said, Shadowbringers is the third expansion now for Final Fantasy XIV, following Heavensward and following Stormblood, and the story picks up pretty much right where things ended in Stormblood. And that means our hero, the Warrior of Light, is transported to the First. And the First is this... Oh man, Final Fantasy rules. It's like this offshoot, other dimensional world that the Asians created, or the Allegans created, or someone created. The story gets super Final Fantasy. It gets totally crazy, gets totally wacky, and we are transported to a different dimension with the other Scions who have been transported at different times. It's kind of weird. It's very different than the previous story, and we'll get into my likes and my dislikes now. Okay, the first like is going to be I really liked the opening movie. The opening movie is great. Another credit to the art team for delivering yet again another fantastic opening movie. Really exciting, a couple really cool moments, especially when the Warrior of Light hits that Dark Knight pose and the music hits, and it's awesome. So really cool opening video, credit to the team on that one. And in particular, the Shadowbringers theme is fantastic. And you guys know how I am about the music. The music is super important for me. It's the thing that drives the aesthetic, it drives emotion, it drives a lot of feelings about the game. So the theme to Shadowbringers is great. Now, unfortunately, that brings me to my first con. I didn't like the music. For the first time in Final Fantasy XIV, I was disappointed in the music overall. I didn't really find there to be a ton of memorable tracks outside of the main Shadowbringers theme, and in particular two pretty large missteps for me, and that is, I've been waiting for new battle music since the very beginning of the expansions here. I mean, I was hoping for new battle music in Heavensward, didn't get it. I was hoping for new battles music in Stormblood, didn't get it. And the first battle that I walk into in Shadowbringers, I went, oh no, this is it? It sounds like a bad Naruto intro. It's like, it's so weird, and it's such an odd choice for battle music, and it didn't work for me. And you hear this battle music every battle for the entire expansion, and that was bit of a letdown for me, especially since I've been wanting that new battle music for so long. Another huge misstep on the music was the zone of, I think it's called Raktika. It's the zone where you meet up with Y'shtola and where her story takes place and where that temple is. Man, the music there is awful. I mean, it was so bad for me that it was the first time since starting to play Final Fantasy XIV that I actually turned the music off when I was in that zone. That theme is horrible. It's terrible. It's like nails on a chalkboard for me. I could not stand it. And then I was kept expecting to find music that I really liked as I played through the expansion, and it just didn't really happen. A bit disappointing for me, especially since, like I said, the music has been such a highlight for me in Final Fantasy XIV up until this point. So probably the first misstep for me with music was this expansion. Okay, something that I did like. I wanted since the beginning for you to be able to dungeon with the other Scions. I kept saying, man, I want duties and I want dungeons where I'm fighting alongside Thancred and Strolla and Alphanod and Alice and all the great characters. And this game finally delivered it, and I thought it was super cool. I was really excited. You walk up to that first dungeon, and right before, everybody's got icons, and I was like, what are the icons about? Wait, did they really? And you click them, and sure enough, they have different roles like tanks, DPS, healers. You can switch out some of the story characters to play alongside you in the dungeons, and it's super cool. I mean, it's really, really cool to fight alongside those guys and have some of those meaningful boss battles. You're fighting alongside the Scions, the other story characters, the characters you care about most. You're fighting right alongside them. It's great. It's really cool. However, that leads into my next con. It is so much slower to fight through the dungeons with these computer characters than it is to just find other adventurers that I found I never really did it. I think I did it in 2 dungeons in the whole expansion, and every time I would just be like, yeah, it'd be cool to fight alongside these characters, but it's nowhere near efficient enough that it's worth doing. You wind up just doing dungeons with other players, and doing dungeons with other players is great, and you should want to do dungeons with other players. So I don't really see any reason to use those story characters. It's cool. I wish there were options where I had to use the story characters to do some story beats. But I wish that they were a little stronger and a little more efficient in dungeoning, frankly. So a little bit disappointing that I've been hoping for that feature for so long, and then the implementation was not exactly as good as I had hoped that it would be. Okay, my next pro. My next pro is that there's a whole new world to explore. It's really cool that when you basically go through this dimension into the first, you have no idea what you're getting yourself into. And that's really cool, because when Final Fantasy XIV first starts, you know that you're on this continent of Eorzea, and very quickly you go through the 3 main cities, and you kind of have a general idea of where you are on the land and what's involved in the land of Eorzea. And it's cool that when you go through this portal, you have no idea. You have no idea what the next zone is going to look like. You have no idea what you're getting yourself into. It's pretty cool that there's this huge unknown happening right when the expansion starts. I also really liked that each of the Scions had been in the first for a different amount of time. Just a cool little tidbit where you get this feeling when you finally see Thancred that like he's been here for a while. And that's kind of a cool moment. Your relationship with the twins is different because they haven't been there nearly as long as Thancred has. And there's a cool moment finding out that in the story, and it leads to some good character development for the other Scions, and I really like that. So overall, I thought that the new world was cool. I thought the Crystarium, the new city, was great. I thought Gulmore was cool, and I liked the music there. And the aesthetic of those 2 cities is top notch, and I really liked it. Definitely want to give a shout out to how much I liked the zones aesthetically, and I liked those new cities. Okay, my next con. I wish that my dialogue options were more meaningful. I had complained about this originally way back in A Realm Reborn, and it's been a theme up until Shadowbringers and including Shadowbringers, and I think it just hit me even more in this expansion than it had previously. I feel like the story is happening around me and I'm just viewing it, as opposed to being the main character. It's like, I understand why they do this, but I don't like that I don't know what my character is saying. He's just moving his lips. He still does the same emotes with the fist to hand, with the constant head nodding and the smiling. And then my dialogue choices are meaningless. They don't do anything different. There's one dialogue option that I imagine when I did it, I got a funny reaction out of one of the characters, but it didn't change anything in the story at all. And it's unfortunate because the story is so good and it's such a huge focus on these expansions. And I wish that I felt like I was more involved in that story rather than just being a bystander kind of watching it happen. So it's not really that this expansion does something poorly in that sense. It's just I really wish there was more feeling like I'm in it than I actually am. So a bit of a con kind of in that regard. Okay, my next pro. The new character costumes are awesome. Like, literally all of them. Alphanod's costume is great. Alice's costume is great. But holy moly, Thancred coming out as the Gunbreaker with the white jacket, just looking so cool, especially because he looked pretty cringy in Heavensward, if I'm totally honest with you. So the fact that he gets this new super cool costume and he gets this new job, and the opening video here playing behind me, I'm sure you can see he's doing all kinds of cool stuff, bouncing off walls and loading his gun blade and shooting stuff, and he feels like Squall from Final Fantasy VIII. He's doing all kinds of cool stuff. Really liked it. Also, Y'shtola's new costume. I love that she does this full transition from White Mage to Black Mage. It's so cool because your character is going from the Warrior of Light to a Shadowbringer, the Warrior of Darkness, and Y'shtola does the same thing. She goes from a White Mage to a Black Mage, so she's also like a Shadowbringer and a Warrior of Darkness, and it's a cool motif. It's great costumes. Another great job by the art team to deliver just something really fun and really cool. I like that a lot. Okay, my next con is that this many expansions into the game and this many hours in the main story quest, I don't understand why the quests are still just the same things every time. It's like, it does not feel like there is hardly any variation in the functional requirements of the quests. It's just like every time I get to a new place, it's go talk to a couple people and then come back to where you are, and then maybe go kill something and then come back and deliver me an item. And there's no variation. It's like the same quest over and over and over. This many expansions in a row. I would really like to see something new. I'd really like to see mini games thrown into quests. I'd really like to see just a variation of quests. And I'm not really getting that in Shadowbringers. And I was a little disappointed that I felt like I was still doing the same things over and over and over in this expansion as well. Bit of a letdown there. Okay, my next pro. I think that Emic Selk is a wonderful villain. I had my problems in the previous expansions, particularly with Yosetsu and Yotsutsu, or I can't remember what her name was, and Xenos, where I felt like they were kind of caricatures of villains and their motives didn't make any sense to me. And I felt like Xenos was trying to be Sephiroth, and I thought that was kind of cringy and a bit eye-rolly. But then we get to Shadowbringers, and the main villain, I think he's fantastic. He surprises you a couple times along the way. His story is actually interesting. His motive is interesting. His relationship to the Scions is interesting. You never know what this guy is going to do next. He's fascinating, and his demeanor and his speech and his voice acting, everything about that character is just great. It's a great villain. It's a great, not even so much villain, he's a great antagonist. And so I thought that was great. I thought it was probably the best part of the story was that they had such a strong villain. So definite props to the team on that one. I thought it was great, and I think we need more great villains like that in Final Fantasy XIV. All right, my next con. Why did we get rid of job quests? The job quests from 50 to 60 for Samurai were fantastic. The job quests from 60 to 70 were very much less than fantastic for Samurai in particular. But then we get these like DPS quests and tank quests, and it was uninspiring. I did the DPS quests because I was playing through Samurai as my main job from 70 to 80, and I just thought it was dumb. It was very forgettable. I thought the story itself in those quests wasn't very good either. It was kind of a letdown. And I just wasn't super impressed with those, and I don't really understand why we did them. I mean, it's probably because there's so many jobs now that you don't want to create a specific quest chain for all of them. But I think one thing that we might be forgetting is that players who come into the game late, those quests exist for forever. It's not like those quests go away. So someone who jumps into the game 5 years from now might get to level 70 and be thinking like, man, I can't wait to do the quests for my job at 70. And you're like, wait, where did they go? Does nobody care about my job anymore? Like, why am I not continuing that on? Like, I thought of a bit of a letdown, a bit disappointing because I think because I got so into the quests from 50 to 60 for Samurai, that I was really kind of hoping after the last expansion being a letdown, that they were really going to nail home some really cool job quests, and I didn't get those. A bit disappointing. Okay, my next pro. I thought that Alice was a fantastic character. She is becoming one of, in my opinion, the strongest characters in the whole cast. I thought she's fantastic. I like what they did with her. She's so interesting, and she complements her twin brother so well. Their relationship has some good comedic moments. And overall, I just think she's a great character, fantastic character. I also think Thancred is just a phenomenal character. I mean, he just really comes into his own in this expansion. He really becomes more interesting. He's got this really cool like father figure thing going on with Nymphilia / Reen. And it's interesting, it's good, it's done well. It makes you care about this character more. And they did a really good job with really all of the Scions and building up their characters in this expansion. You feel particularly close to them, and you really feel like you're fighting the battle with them. I think they did a good job with that. I really like that. All right, my next con. My next con is the Reen character. Just weird. I don't get it. I don't get her character. I don't get her motivation, really. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me why she cares about Nymphilia at all. And her motivation seems to lack. And just altogether, I didn't find her to be a super interesting character. I thought the Crystal Exarch turns out to be a much more interesting character. But she is just, I didn't get it. She didn't do it for me. I didn't feel a lot of emotional impact in her story beats. Didn't really do a lot for me. Just kind of a letdown character overall. And, that's the way it goes. You can't knock it out of the park with everybody. But since some of the other characters were so strong, it didn't bother me a ton that they sort of let the ball drop with her. But I did feel like they let the ball drop a little bit with her. All right, my next pro is I thought the Warrior of Light fight was so cool. I'm really liking that Final Fantasy XIV is incorporating other Final Fantasies into Final Fantasy XIV. It's almost like it's like an anthology, or it's a celebration of all of Final Fantasy wrapped into this game. And you feel the heart, you feel the passion of the developers to deliver something that's good and nostalgic. And one doesn't rely on the other, but they enhance each other together. And that comes to a culmination in one of the story moments where you fight a raid fight against the Final Fantasy I Warrior of Light. And they do a cool job of the way they go about that, but it doesn't feel cheesy. It feels like a cool nostalgic moment that's earned, and it's a cool story beat, and it's a cool moment. I really like that. All right. This is going to get to my final con, and kind of the last thing I'm going to say about Shadowbringers altogether, and that is, overall, I didn't love the story overall. I've really liked the story up until Shadowbringers, and I was really excited, and I kind of think I blindly trusted the team that no matter what they came up with, it was just going to knock my socks off. Especially because it felt like the story was getting better and better and better as we've gone from 1 to 70. That said, the story overall in Shadowbringers, it didn't work for me. We continued to do the thing that I absolutely can't stand most, which is bring characters back from the dead. It drives me absolutely crazy that this Sephiroth wannabe is back and is the main villain apparently again. And based on where the story ends in Shadowbringers, certainly seems like he's going to be a villain moving forward in Endwalker too, which is like, come on, how many times do we have to kill this guy? And why do we keep bringing characters back from the dead? That's not my only complaint with the story. My other complaint with the story is that everything feels a little too Final Fantasy. And what I mean by that is we're just sort of flying by the seat of our pants with the story. It's like, whatever the story needs, we just make up the rules as we go for how the universe works. I don't understand how anytime we get to a problem in the story, I think as the player, I should be able to figure out at least somewhat what the characters are going to try and do to accomplish something. It should be something that the audience is working alongside them, being like, oh, you know, it'd be smart as if my characters decide to go do this. But there isn't any of that. It's like the way that we work through problems is just like something completely out of left field. It's just like, what is this and how does this have any relevance to the story? And they just like pull something in and you're like, okay, I guess this is how we're doing problem solving now, is just throwing in some new thing that we don't know anything about, and it just happens to fix all of our problems. So between that and between, I didn't love the story of the Warrior of Darkness, Egbert, no, that's not his name, whatever his name is, Erdbert or something, Ardbert. He didn't resonate with me, especially how he was a villain before, and now we're supposed to just all of a sudden accept him as being this good guy. It was contrived to me a little bit. It didn't emotionally impact me the same way that some of the beats in Heavensward and Stormblood really did. So overall, it was still a good story, especially because some of the character development of the Scions was so great, but the overarching story, the whole plot together, it didn't really work for me, and I didn't love it. And I think you combine that with me not loving the music in this expansion, I think the overall feel was slightly disappointing compared to Heavensward and Stormblood. So, if I'm going to give an overall score to Shadowbringers, I'm going to give Shadowbringers an 8.8 out of 10. Still a very good game, still definitely worth checking out, but maybe not quite hitting the highs of Stormblood for me as far as storytelling goes. So, that's going to do it for my review of Shadowbringers. Please like the video here and leave a comment down below on what you thought of Shadowbringers, and let me know if I'm way off the mark on my review, because that's totally possible. And if you would subscribe to the channel and ring the bell for notifications to get notified of when future Final Fantasy XIV videos come out. Also, I'm going to be doing a 24-hour live stream of the Endwalker expansion on December 3rd. Starting at 1 a.m. So come check me out at Twitch at twitch.tv/CyrusTheGreat99. I'll be leaving a link in the description below here, and come check me out over there and we can explore the story of Endwalker together. I'm super excited about it. So thanks for checking out this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.